In this video, we are going to start out our chapter on similarity. So we're going to get into rates and ratios in today's video and solving proportions, and we will get into scales in the next video. So first off, let's get to some vocabulary. So go ahead and pause the video to get this written down, then come back and add a few details to it. So first off, we're going to talk about rates. And so rates are when you compare two numbers or measurements that have different units. So differing units meaning they're measuring completely different things, like maybe a length or a distance versus a time, or a dollar amount versus a time, things like that. And so differing units, so one that you'd be pretty used to would be miles per hour or even dollars per hour. And so and this could be something, so let's do maybe like 60 miles versus 30 minutes. Okay, so that's going to be a rate because miles cannot be converted into minutes. So this would be 60 miles per 30 minutes. So then a unit rate is going to be when this second number here is equal to 1. Okay, so when the second number, as you're saying it, is equal to 1. So if we wanted to take and convert this to a unit rate, okay, we would need this one to be down to 30. So we're going to divide both of these numbers by 30. So then we would get to 2 miles per 1 minute. Okay, which would be really fast, right? But so you can write it like this, and we'll get into this in a little bit, but miles per minute. Okay, so then this is going to be in a unit rate where this second number is equal to 1. So if you're saying like 24 miles per hour, so 24 miles per hour, that's a unit rate. Okay, this could be written out like this: 24 miles per 1 hour is how that's being written. So that would be a unit rate. So then we can get into ratios. Okay, so ratios are comparing two numbers or measurements that have the same unit. So you're comparing a distance to a distance or a time to a time. And they can be converted into the same measurement. So if you're doing like feet versus inches. So when we do this, we write this in 3 ways. So if we're going to say our two numbers, let's just call them A and B are going to be our two numbers. Okay, so our two quantities that we're comparing. So the 3 ways that these can be written is you can write it with a colon, so A to B. You can write it as a fraction, A over B, or you can write it with the word 2 in the middle, so A to B. So these are the 3 separate ways to write them, and you can exchange between these at any point in time. So ratios really mean division because we've got a fraction. So then when we do a proportion, that's going to be when we have two equivalent ratios or equal ratios. Okay, so if we say like 1/2 is equivalent to 3/6, that would be a proportion. Generally speaking, you're going to have one of these spots that's a variable, and then you would solve. So they're two equivalent ratios that are set equal to each other, and then you can solve using cross multiplication. So let's take a look at a couple examples here. So in this first example, we have a triangle, and then we have a proportion given to us here that we're going to fill in from this picture. So this one is saying the length of AD. So here's segment AD right here. So we're going to plug in 4.2. So 4.2 over the length of DB, this one, so 2.1, is equal to AE, which is 6, over EC, which is X. So these are two equivalent ratios. So now when we're doing proportional reasoning, so you can cross multiply this, okay? Remember, proportional reasoning is division, okay? So common factors or multiplication, that type of thing. So cross multiply, so you can multiply like this, okay? So then you'll get 4.2x on the left equals 12.6 on the right. Now divide by 4.2. and you'll get x equals 3. So one other thing that you may have noticed with this proportional reasoning is right here. This is 2.1 is half of 4.2. Okay, so this is different by a factor of 2. So this one is also going to be like that. So if I take 4.2 and divide it by 2, I get that 2.1. So same thing over here. 6 divided by 2 would give me x equals 3. So proportional reasoning is all about common factors, things that you can see multiplied or divided. So if that makes sense, you can do it that way. You can also cross multiply. So then in this one, we'll cross multiply since we have some expressions here. So we'll multiply this 4 with this. Okay, so it looks like this, 4 times the quantity x plus 2. And then on this other side, we'll do x minus 1 times that 7. Okay, so we're going to do the 7 times that whole quantity. And then we'll simplify by distributing each side. So multiply the 4 times the x and the 2. A lot of people forget to multiply it by that 2. Same thing over here. The 7 would multiply into both. So 7x and 7 times negative 1, which is negative 7. And then we'll solve. Okay, so we can add 7 to both sides here so that we end up with 4x plus 15 equals 7x. Get those x's together by subtracting 4x to both sides. So then we get 5 equals 3x. Get x by itself by dividing by 3. And we end up with x equals 5/3. So proportions come up a lot in a lot of real world situations and a lot of times throughout just some basic things that you're doing in life. So this one's talking about a recipe. So a recipe calls for 8 cups of flour. So 8 cups of flour is going to make 48 pancakes. So how many pancakes are going to be made with a single cup of flour? So this is going to be proportionally, okay? So 8 cups of flour to get 48 pancakes. So how many pancakes are we going to get in 1 cup of flour? So on this little number line here, you'll see that they put 1 cup of flour and 8 cups of flour, okay? So they're putting our flour measurements on the top and then our pancake measurements on the bottom. Okay, so 8 cups of flour went with 48 pancakes. So what's 1 cup of flour going to go with? Okay, so there's multiple ways you can do this. So 1 is what I talked about with that division, okay, because it's going to proportionally, okay, or at the same ratio, simplify down. So 8 down to 1 is divide by 8. So divide it into 8 equal parts and you'll figure out the pancakes. Okay, so 8 cups divided by 8 gets us down to 1 cup. So 48 divided by 8 gets us down to 6 pancakes. Okay, so you can do it that way. If you like proportions better, okay, you can do 1 cup of flour versus 8 cups of flour should equal how many pancakes versus 48 pancakes. Okay, so this was flour versus flour and then pancake to pancake and set up that ratio. Then you just need to cross multiply. So 48 equals 8x, divide by 8 to get 6 for those pancakes. The big thing here is that it's always a ratio. It's a common factor, okay? Multiplying or dividing by the same number. So earnings when you have a job. Okay, so this table shows Caleb's earnings at his job. So time worked versus how much money he made. So what is the constant proportionality between the earnings and times in hours? So earnings is dollars per time, which is hours. So they want the dollars per hour here. So how many dollars per hour? So we're going to take the dollars on top divided by the hours on bottom. Okay, so take any of these you want because they are all the same. They will all get you down to the same ratio. So put any dollar amount on top and then divide it by the number of hours worked. So 108 divided by 6, okay, to get you 18 per hour. Is that right? I better re-divide that to make sure. 108 divided by 6. Okay, yeah, 18. So then, and you can check your work here by then multiplying these by 18 and making sure they work. So 20 times 18 is in fact 360, so that's good. And 25 times 18 is 450. So that should work out. So then they're getting $18 per 1 hour of work. So then when you're buying something at the store, so Aaron buys 11 bottles of apple juice at the corner store and it totals $5.17. If each bottle costs the same amount, okay, so same amount, how much is each bottle of orange juice? Okay, so each bottle you want to know how many dollars per bottle. Okay, so how many dollars for one bottle? So dollars per bottle. So put the dollar amount on top divided by the number of bottles. Okay, so divide by the number of bottles, and then that'll get you down to one bottle. So $5.17 divided by 11 bottles. Okay, let's see. 517 divided by 11 gets you 47 cents per one bottle. Okay, so 47 cents per bottle. So we could also be doing ratios with shapes here, okay? So find the ratio of squares, okay? So squares is the first number, 2 circles, which is the second number. So count the number of squares, okay? So we have 1, 2 squares. So your unsimplified ratio is going to put the squares first. So 2 squares. Then count how many circles there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and double that, so 10. So to 10 squares. So then you're going to simplify it. So now for every 1 square, okay, so if we had 1 square, how many circles would there be? Okay, so we had 2, so half of that is going to put us down to 5 circles. So for every 1 square, there are 5 circles. Therefore, the simplified ratio is 1 to 5. And you can see that taking place up here in the picture. If you look at, so we did, first off did the whole thing, 2 to 10. And then if you look down, 1 square to 5 circles. That's the simplified version.